If you're an Australian business leader, I'm sure this sounds familiar, you're sitting in, say, Sydney or Melbourne, looking at your forecasts for the next year or two,
Mhm.
and you're probably seeing two things. First, revenue targets are slipping just a bit. And second, the operational costs to just maintain what you've got digitally are, well, they're ballooning.
You can feel that drag from legacy tech, can't you?
You really can. And meanwhile, new competitors just seem to be launching these seamless, high-performance apps almost overnight.
That pressure isn't just a feeling, though. It's quantifiable, and it's hitting the Australian digital economy pretty hard.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Um,
We've gone through recent industry reports, and we've dug really deep into our own internal C9 data, focusing specifically on Australian enterprises.
and the mission for this deep dive is pretty simple.
We want to give you a strategic shortcut. We're going to show you how a calculated shift in technology can potentially cut your cross-platform app development costs by, up to 40% immediately.
Oh.
And I'm Lex. Welcome to the C9 Podcast Show. We want to welcome all of our C9 followers, and especially you, our audience of Australian business owners and C-level executives.
Our mission today is to be your expert guides. We're going to unpack exactly what you need to know before you sign off on that next big mobile project.
And we're going to pinpoint the real source of that wasted spend so you can make a much more strategic pivot.
Right, so let's start with those pain points, because it's not just about spending too much money.
No, it's about spending it inefficiently and falling behind.
If you look at the bigger picture, the Australian digital economy strategy for 2025-2030, it has a stark warning.
I remember reading this.
It says organizations that invest intelligently in custom digital solutions.
And intelligently is the key word there.
It is. Solutions that actually fix workflow bottlenecks, that improve the customer experience. They will outpace their slower competitors by a factor of 2.8x in productivity gains.
2.8 times. That's not just a gap. That's a chasm opening up between the leaders and, well, the laggards.
It is. And the high cost of the outdated development path is what's keeping so many businesses on the wrong side of that chasm.
We found a pretty shocking statistic, actually, in the Clutching Good Firm's 2025 APAC report. It says Australian enterprises are wasting, between 38 and 42% more than they should be on mobile app development?
Just by sticking to that traditional pure native development path.
That is almost half the budget. Gone. Not on features, but on structural inefficiency.
And it's important to understand, these aren't just high dollar amounts. These are structural problems specific to the Australian market.
Okay, explain that. What do you mean by structural?
Well, traditional native development means you have to build the exact same app twice.
Once for Apple's iOS using their language, Swift,
And then all over again for Android using Kotlin.
which creates an immediate talent squeeze, right?
Exactly. Finding a top-tier senior Swift developer and a top-tier senior Kotlin developer in the same city. It's difficult.
And expensive.
Astronomically expensive. And then even after you launch, the inefficiency just keeps going. You have mandatory dual update cycles.
So every time Apple pushes a new iOS version,
You're paying one team to update one code base. And then you're paying another team to do it all again for all the different Android versions.
Yeah.
It's double the overhead every single quarter.
and I imagine it's a compliance nightmare too.
A huge one. Think about the notifiable data breaches scheme here in Australia.
Hmm.
It's complex enough to manage once.
But with two code bases.
You have twice the complexity, twice the sign-offs, and frankly, twice the risk of missing a security loophole. It's a model that was fine for maybe 2015, but not for today.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's talk about the alternative, the strategic cost reducer, React Native.
Right. Now, some executives hear that and get a little skeptical. They might remember older technologies that were pitched as write once, run anywhere, but felt clumsy.
Clunky, slow, like a
Yeah.
website crammed into an app.
Exactly. We need to be really clear. React Native is fundamentally different. It is not a web view in a native container.
That is a critical distinction. Because if you tell a CIO you're going to use JavaScript for their mission-critical app, the first question is always going to be about performance.
And that's a fair challenge. The key difference is that React Native takes your shared business logic, written in JavaScript, and it compiles it directly to the true native user interface.
So you're getting the same Swift buttons, the same Kotlin lists.
The very same ones a pure native app uses. This is why you get performance that is identical to native. We're talking 60 frames per second UI performance. Smooth scrolling, it's non-negotiable.
So it looks native, feels native, performs native, but the logic is from one shared code base.
Precisely. and the benefits are immense. You get over-the-air updates so you can push small fixes without waiting for App Store approval,
Which can take days.
or weeks, and you get full access to all the device hardware, camera, GPS, biometrics, everything. This is why the adoption rate is so high. The State of JS 2024 report showed it's used in production by 42% of Fortune 500 mobile apps. This is enterprise-grade stuff.
The real driver here for the budget savings, though, has to be the code reuse. That's where it all starts.
That's the entire engine. As we said, with pure native, you get maybe 10% code reuse if you're lucky.
Right.
With a well-architected React Native project, that number jumps to 85, even 95%, and that single fact is the source of that 40% cost reduction.
Let's dive into those core numbers then.
Yeah.
Because this is what changes the game for executives. How does that shared code translate into actual dollar savings?
Okay, let's start with the biggest driver, people cost. If you're sourcing purely local senior native talent in Australia, you're looking at rates of, say, $180 to $280 an hour
Per person.
per person. By using a managed blended React Native team, that rate drops by 45 to 52%. You're looking at a blended rate of about $98 to $138 an hour.
Okay, wait, let's stop right there. A 50% drop in cost. That's going to raise questions about risk, about quality. How is that managed?
That is the critical question.
Yeah.
The model works because you have AEST leadership. Local Australian project leads, architects, and product owners who handle all the requirements, the compliance, the security in your time zone.
So the strategy is local?
The strategy and quality control are local. The highly specialized build work is then executed efficiently by directly employed senior specialists, not random contractors, often overnight. That structure is how you get the quality outcome and the cost advantage.
Understood. So beyond the hourly rate, what about speed? Time to market is everything.
Absolutely. Development time is cut by 50 to 60%. A complex native project that might take, 9 to 18 months, we can often deliver that in 4 to 7 months with React Native. And your ongoing maintenance costs drop by 40%, from 20 to 30% of the build cost down to a more predictable 12 to 18%, because you're only maintaining one code base.
So let's put it all together. If you're budgeting an average app in Australia, maybe in the $180K to $320K range, you're saying that shifts down to about $98K to $165K. That's the 38 to 45% saving we're talking about.
And we have direct Australian proof of this. We worked with a Brisbane logistics company. They were quoted $248,000 for a traditional native solution.
2 separate apps, I assume. One for drivers, one for customers.
Exactly. They chose a single shared React Native solution instead. We delivered it in 5 months for $138,000.
So that's 44% under the native budget. But what about the business impact? The ROI?
That was the real win. Because the app was delivered so fast, they integrated real-time tracking across both interfaces. And in the first year alone, they saw an 18% reduction in their fuel costs.
Wow.
The technology choice didn't just save them money up front. It became a strategic asset that paid for itself.
Okay, that sounds like a huge win. But let's inject a bit of caution here, because if React Native is so efficient, why are so many mobile projects still failing?
Very important question.
We're seeing this trend. We call it the AI Cowboy promise. We'll build your app in 14 days for $8,000. So the question you have to ask is, what happens 12 months later?
That is the reality check every executive needs. A year after you go with that cheap freelancer or that vendor promising the world, the outcomes are almost always a disaster.
Like the app crashing under any real load.
Exactly. App crashes because there's no architecture. Or even worse, a data breach, which means you're reporting to the ACCC, and that carries massive penalties.
And then you're stuck trying to fix it.
You're completely locked in. Because the original developer's gone, there's no documentation. So a quality partner comes in and has to quote you $120,000 or more just to figure out what they even built.
The initial saving just evaporated into technical debt.
And then some. A genuine partner has to be the exact opposite of that. It's about mitigating that risk from day one.
Which means things like mandatory architecture diagrams.
Mandatory diagrams, a full handover portal in Confluence, bi-weekly knowledge transfer workshops, and, most importantly, you, the client, own every single line of code. You should never be a hostage to your developer.
And that certainty comes back to that blended team model you mentioned. It's not 100% local, which can be too expensive.
Right, and it's not 100% offshore, where you can lose that critical AEST communication and compliance knowledge.
It's the best of both.
Local leadership for strategy and quality, combined with our bench of over 70 directly employed senior specialists doing the build. They are our permanent staff, which guarantees stability.
And for companies that need to scale flexibly, that staff augmentation model is key. You're basically getting senior remote talent that's fully managed.
And backed by our entire team's expertise. And if you're looking at that route, there's a strategic sweet spot for contract length.
Right, not just month to month.
You can do that, but we find the 3 to 6 month minimum lock-in is where you get an additional 12 to 18% discount.
Why is that time frame so important?
Because it takes a senior engineer 4 to 6 weeks just to get fully immersed in your business, your specific rules, your integrations.
Context switching is expensive.
It's a huge waste of that initial investment. Locking in that competitive rate for a few months guarantees stability through the project's hardest phase.
And just for clarity, for the current fiscal year, those blended rates are about $98 to $128 an hour for a senior React Native engineer.
And a tech lead or solution architect is around $148 to $178 an hour. And the data is clear. If you demand local-only contracts, you add 45 to 65% to those costs instantly.
Okay, we've covered technology, teams, and cost, but let's end on what might be the single most important insight for anyone listening.
I agree. Skipping a paid discovery call is the single most expensive mistake you can make.
Those free indicative proposals, the budget estimates you get from vendors,
They're marketing theater. They're commercial guesses, not commercial documents.
and guesswork is what costs you. We have a perfect example, a manufacturing client in Perth. A competitor's free guess, their indicative quote, was for $160,000 to $220,000.
But after a paid discovery, a structured, deep investigation, C9 delivered a fixed price of $129,000.
That's almost 20% less than their lowest guess. How does a small investment in discovery find such massive savings?
It's often simple things you overlook. The discovery found that 42% of the features they wanted already existed in their Dynamics 365 instance.
They already own the technology.
They were already paying for it. And we realized they could reuse their existing Okta setup for single sign-on instead of building a whole new authentication system from scratch.
And that let them launch phase 1 really quickly.
In just 8 weeks. That first phase started generating efficiency savings immediately, which then self-funded phase 2. The discovery prevented a massive overspend.
So what does a C9 discovery actually involve? What are you buying for that, $1,500 to $4,500 fee?
You're buying predictability. First, we map every integration and compliance point. Second, we build a phased roadmap with ROI calculated per sprint.
Not just at the end.
Per sprint. Third, we identify that critical 20 to 30% of scope that delivers 70% of the value so you can launch fast. And then you get an hour-accurate proposal. No more guesses.
And that brings us back to the big picture for you, the executive. This strategy React Native, a blended team, and discovery-first scoping it changes the project from a cost center
to a strategic asset that actually funds its own growth.
So let's wrap this up. The final takeaway is this. The winners in Australia in 2025 and 2026, they won't be the ones with the deepest pockets.
No. They'll be the ones who launch faster, who spend 40% less on mobile, and who own their code base and knowledge completely.
And that leads to a final thought for you to consider.
Given the extreme cost savings, the risk mitigation, the speed, is the real strategic risk in 2026, choosing any other path besides a React Native, discovery-first, blended team model.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Don't let another quarter bleed money to outdated development or AI cowboy roulette. It's time to take decisive action.
We encourage you to book a 15-minute, no-pressure intro call with us. Or, if you know what you need, go straight to a paid discovery and get a fixed price and a roadmap this week.
You've been listening to Lex and Vera from the C9 podcast show. We are C9, Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company. You can find all the details and book that call at www.c9.com.au.
And please remember to click that follow button and share this deep dive with other Australian business owners and executives. This is knowledge that can give them a real competitive advantage. We'll see you on the next deep dive.